Hello, BookTube. I'm here with a Tuesday tag. There's a tag that's been going around for a while, and I never bothered doing it. It's called the favorite author tag, and the reason why that I haven't been doing it is because um, it's an impossible question for me to answer. It's like, what's your favorite book? I can't answer that question. I can say what are my favorite books. Excuse me. I had a sneezing fit before I started filming. But yeah, I can answer what are my favorite books, what are my favorite authors, uh, but I can't say one specific author. I probably anywhere from 8 to 12, um, or Baker's dozen 13 possibly of each of those. But there is one that's been one of my favorite authors. It's been sort of in my mind in the last week or so. Is George Orwell. And that's who the first question is: who's your favorite author? It's George Orwell. Uh, Eric Arthur Blair was his real name. Born in 1903, died in 1950. And the reason why he's been on my mind a little bit is because it's 70 years after his death. And his writings, or most, if not all, I think, will go into public domain in the UK. So I think as of January, there are several publishers that are going to be putting out new editions of his material. And so he's been on my mind, and I want to get a few things in case they disappear. And I'll get to that in a little while. But that's my favorite author. And how did you discover this author? It was in school. I think it was like grade 9. Grade 9, I think it was. In English class, we had to read 2 of his books. The first was 1984. This is an annotated edition by D.J. Taylor, so I have not read this edition yet. But anyway, this was it. First book I had to read, forced to read, at gunpoint, at pain of death, and I hated it. Rubbish. Totally. It was god awful. Didn't like it at all. No, not at all. And then the next one was Animal Farm, as you would expect. The only saving grace of that was it was short. Didn't like it. But we're talking 40 plus years ago now. When I did this. Then, and I wrote him off as a writer completely, utterly and completely. So that was my discovery of him. Number 3 is, was it instant love, or did it take time for you to tell? Well, as I say, it was not instant love; it was instant hate for him. But let's fast forward now to 2005, late 2005 into 2006. I've come to England here, and it was November of 2005. I started working at a bookshop and expecting to continue on, but it was only a temporary job, and I didn't get it. I made the cardinal sin of showing that I know more than the manager about books and subjects than everybody that worked there. So, and I had like twice as many years experience, but they wouldn't have me because I showed up someone there. So, oops. Anyway, I was then out of work just before Christmas. And I struggled for a bit, I think till about February, March, looking for a job. I was pretty diligent and looking for a job, and I found a job here in Bedford. But in between that, while I was looking for work, I needed something to do. I was sort of twiddling my thumbs. I didn't have a whole lot of money, so I didn't want to go out and buy books. So I was living in Milton Keynes at that time, and they have a really good public library. And I went in, and they had like probably almost every P.G. Wodehouse book there was. So I just ran through those. Like I was reading like 2 or 3 of these a day because you read them really quickly. So I was spending my time doing that, just filling up my time and, hoping that I could get work and so forth. I ran out of P.G. Wodehouse. And so I'm there going, what else? What else can I read? I didn't really feel like reading any heavy stuff at the time, like going into literature, which they did have. So I was looking on one of the spinner racks, the twirly things, and I was turning it around, and the book fell out, and it fell on my foot. I know I've told this story before, so you can fast forward if you've heard it, but there's new followers. So, but anyway, I picked up the book. It was the back. It was a penguin that I saw. I didn't notice the author's name. I don't know if it actually. I'm sure it wasn't on the back. And I read it's about somebody who's a poet. Oh, okay. Tick one. And then he is working in a used bookstore. Tick two. And he's writing a big epic poem, and he's struggling along. Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. Set before the war, World War II. Oh yeah. Another tick mark. London. Oh, okay, sounds good. What's it called? I flip it over. So I saw that. Keep the Apodistra flying, but bloody George Orwell. No. No. Immediate hatred came up. And I put it back on. I just sort of shoved it back into the spinner rack. So I spent about another half hour, 45 minutes at least, looking around for something else. And this was still sort of percolating in my brain. So I went back to it, and I picked it up. And I leafed through, and I found a few passages of where he's talking about working in the bookshop, and customers come in doing X, Y, and Z things, like saying, "Oh, you got a great shop here, great selection. See ya," and don't buy anything. And it happens all the time. And I had a bookshop, and these things that he describes sort of happened at the same time. And I turned it over again, looked at the cover. George Orwell. So I looked in again and read it, and it's like, okay, I spent a little more time with it. Well, I'll take it out. Couldn't find anything else. And I loved it. I read it that afternoon and evening, and finished it off the next morning. And yeah, I loved it. Really liked it. So I went back. Yeah. Went back for more George Orwell. What can I say? 40 years, well, what was it? At that point, it was 30 years later, 25 years later plus. And I saw Coming Up for Air. And, it's set, around 1939, late 30. Okay, that sounds good. Let's open it up, and the first line was, Chapter 1, "The idea really came to me the day I got my new false teeth." That sold me on it. And I liked it. Yeah, it was very good. I enjoyed it very much so. And it's like, I by bar none, it's, I think, the best first line in any book, any novel, any fiction book. It's the best first line of a book. I love it. Okay, so I've read that one. That was the second one. So the next day I go back again, and I grabbed up everything else. Burmese Days, Clergyman's Daughter. I picked up Homage to Catalonia, The Road to Wigan Pier, Down and Out in Paris and London. I did not pick up in 1984 at the time, and Animal Farm. I left those. But I worked through those, and I really liked them. And I really liked the Down and Out in Paris and London, and The Road to Wigan Pier. Homage to Catalonia, I struggle a little bit with, because I don't know that much about the Spanish Civil War. So I was a little fish out of water there. So, but I still enjoyed it, even so. So then I went back and got 1984 and Animal Farm. I read those. And I think after 30 years, 25 to 30 years later, at that point, I had changed, and I wouldn't say that I like, and I still, because I've read, I guess 3 times, each of them, and in total, including the first time I read it, 40 plus years ago. Um, I wouldn't say I still like. I don't like his stuff. That I don't like those two that much. Okay, but that's fine. I understand them, and I understand the purpose and everything like that, and I can understand why people do like them. But they just don't resonate with me. His writing style. I thought his writing was much stronger in Down and Out in Paris, Road to Wigan Pier, and then I found these two. These two were Penguin compilations. This one is Orwell's England, and it had Wigan Pier in it, but it's much more. There's a lot more to it. It's got essays, letters, articles, book reviews, anything that's sort of relating to that kind of thing of Orwell's England. And I thoroughly loved that, and it was amazing, and I really really loved it. And so I read that, and then I got this one, Orwell in Spain, out of the library too, and I reread Homage to Catalonia. It made more sense with the supplementary material that was in the book. But from this, I noticed that this was all culled from a complete works of George Orwell, and it was 20 volumes at the time. So I thought, I wonder if the library has it. No, they didn't. But at that time, by the time I got around to these, I moved to Bedford here, and started working. So I got a job. So it was about February, I guess. I read other stuff in between, but they didn't have the other two. There was 4 of them. So I went, and when I finally, I think it was around. I sort of left Orwell for a while, from about February probably 2006 to beginning of 2007. And the first things I bought were the 2 other supplementary volumes. Orwell in Politics had Animal Farm again, so I read that. And this is Orwell and the Dispossessed, so it has Down and Out Paris and London again. Read that, loved it. And when I got permanency where I was working, I decided, okay, fine, I want more. I want his nonfiction. But I did buy again all the Penguins that were edited by Peter Davison, who did the 20-volume set. So I bought the volume 10 to 20 in paperbacks. That's all the nonfiction, and it's all chronological. So I bought those. I got them really cheap. I think all from Amazon, but they were £6-7 each or something. So I blew a bit of money that I shouldn't have, but I did on those, and I've been reading them since. So that's how I sort of started. That's how I began to love Orwell. So, okay, well, that's 14 minutes there, and we're just on finished question 3. Okay. Question 4. Which is your favorite book from this author? It's a bit of a toughie. I guess. Well, there's 3, but I still haven't. I'll say the 3, and they sort of will come in front. One will come in front, and the other occasionally. But Down and Out in Paris and London, which I don't have a copy here now. Anyway, yeah, other than those two, these 2 that I bought, I still have. But I didn't. All the other ones I gave to a friend. It was a housemate that was going into the army, and he liked George Orwell. I said, "Here, take them," because they were just Penguins, and I figured I can get them again, and I was more concentrated on the nonfiction at that time. And I had Down and Out in Paris. So in there, so I was happy. Um, what was the question again? Favorite book. Yeah, so Down and Out in Paris would be, and then very close to it would be The Road to Wigan Pier. Um, and I did buy this separately again, not too long ago actually, but I haven't got around to reading it. But again, and then there's an essay collection. Like there's 3 essays. It's called Inside the Whale. They're amazing essays. When you read these together, there's an essay about Dickens. There's an essay about boy stories, and there's an essay of Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer. I've never read those books, the Henry Miller ones, but it's called Inside the Whale, and it's, I'll just briefly say, it's like when you're inside a whale, you're going to be protected and muffled from everything, the outside world. And that theme is through those 3 essays. But to go anything more into it would just take a lot of time. And I'd have to reread them too to do that. But yeah, those, they contend. Like one comes in front occasionally than the other. Next question is, how many books have you read from this author? Well, I've read all the 9 published books that I mentioned. Down and Out in Paris, Burmese Days, The Clergyman's Daughter, Coming Up for Air, Road to Wigan Pier, Homage to Catalonia. What am I missing there? Animal Farm, 1984. And I'm still missing something, which I can't think off the top of my head. But I read all the 9 that they were published as separate books. Plus, I've got about halfway through the nonfiction volumes, and I'm still working on those. I've got other collections that are culled from it that Peter Davison has called, specifically letters, specifically diaries and journalism, and I've got some other articles, volumes of articles, and other various essay ones. And the reason why I have those is it's a little easier to navigate, in those. Because the complete works is chronological from beginning to end. It's fantastic. It's an amazing feat of scholarship. It not only has all the letters, but when he could access them, he will have the replies to the letters. And when you read back and forth between his wife and him, it's interesting, and especially with the Victor Golan's, his publisher during the 30s. They're just amazing, and also too, it's got all his book reviews, and as I say, chronologically, everything else. It's got his radio talks, and it also has. And he plays the poetry he wrote. It's all in there. Diary entries are all in there. But again, as I say, chronological. So sometimes it's nice to have a group of essays to read, or just quickly look up an essay. So I do that. I've also got 4 or 5 biographies about him that I've read, and I've recently this year bought a few other things that's come out in the past 4 or 5 years. So I've got almost a small bookcase of Orwellania, I guess you would say, and it's only going to probably grow. There are still ones that I want to get, but some of them are just beyond price range because they're academic publishers. But yeah, so I've eventually I will have read every scrap that he wrote. Just waiting for other things to be published. Like there was a 21st volume, a slim volume, for the complete works with some new stuff that was found, and waiting just for it. Like for instance, if his diaries, his Spanish diaries, show up, in the they're rumored to be, or they were confiscated by the Russians, and they could be still hidden in, misfiled or whatever, in the deep dark depths of the Russian archive. So it's always a possibility they'll pop up, and they'd be fascinating reading. Okay, next one is what best describes this author. I'm sure a lot of people could probably have done it way better than I can, but I just sort of, he is very clear in his writing, like it's nonfiction. He's very precise and clear. You know what he's talking about, and he rails against injustices, regardless of what it is. Like he does have a socialist and left leaning, but he will then rip that apart if it needs to be, if there's problems there. Um, and I sort of consider him an honest writer, of honest for him. And I don't always agree with everything he writes, but boy, it makes you think and question things. I can only think what he would write now in the past, like since 2010 with in England here. I don't know. Like he'd be writing probably so furiously 24/7, he'd probably die because he just would write so much. And then with since 2016 with Donald Trump, I don't. Yeah, he would just explode for writing. I'm sure because he would just rail against everything now, every single thing, every injustice, and there's so many. What genre does this author write? Well, everything. 1984 and Animal Farm has been called science fiction. It's not particularly science fiction. I don't particularly like speculative fiction, the term speculative fiction, but that might actually be a better term for it. It's political fiction, definitely. He writes normal fiction. He's written poetry, diary entries, essays, columns, radio broadcasts that you can read as well, um, book reviews. He's written everything basically. The letters as well, and they're just great to read. Um, and why do I love this author? Well, for everything that I said, it's because he's honest. He's got an interesting humor. Uh, he's analytical to a certain extent. Um, he will, to get a point across, he will sacrifice sort of accuracy, and not facts so much, but accuracy of what he sees in his journalistic writing at times to get the point across. The road to Wigan Pier has been, carved up and, debated by people saying, oh, well, this didn't happen. You can see it in his diaries that this scene happened somewhere else. And then he put it in there. But it works where he puts it. It actually makes a point, and it drives the point home in the best possible way. The road to Wigan Pier isn't sort of to be taken as 100%. At least I don't think so. Factual of what happened to him while he was there. It's his impression of how these people live. And to do that, sometimes I think, you have to manipulate events and facts occasionally. And once you know that, smooth sailing. But then he does get, he will get his facts correct at other times, when he's writing essays, sometimes. But again, some of his essays, like Shooting an Elephant, and that has been dissected and questioned. Or the hanging one, which are the really popular ones, have been dissected and questioned at times. But again, I think he's writing to get a point and a feeling across. And it doesn't need to be 100% accurate. I don't think he's touting it. He's not trying to say it's 100%, but yeah. So this and it's just the style of writing. It's everything. His book reviews I love because I have discovered new writers through him by reading his book reviews, or writers that I never even considered reading before. A few, yeah, as I say, there's new ones, but a lot of it is, oh, really? That sounds interesting. I never thought that would be from that writer, blah blah blah. And then I have just rediscovered and discovered wonderful things. Um, and then the last one is, who do you tag? Well, this has been done by a lot of people. I don't know who. I've seen a lot of them, so I won't tag anybody. If anybody is interested in tagging or doing it, then feel free. It's been created by Nicole Rogas. I'll leave a link, and I'll leave a link to James Holder's video as well, where I saw it. Anyway, I hope this goes up this time, because I filmed it earlier this afternoon, and it did not, or well, yesterday now, because it's past midnight here in the UK. So it's not technically a Tuesday tag at the moment, but just forget about that. But yeah, so hopefully it'll go up this time. Take care, BookTube. I think I'll be back tomorrow with a tag. There's a horror tag that I might do. Anyway, I will talk to you later, BookTube.